Okay, class, good afternoon. So today we are going to do the poem The Gift of India, and this poem has been written by Sarojini Naidu. So this poem which we are going to do, The Gift of India, right? It is related to the time when the First World War was being fought, right? And what was the duration of the First World War? It was fought between 1914 to 1918. Right? And what happened? India was not a direct party to it, but Indian soldiers were sent because we were under the British rule. So our soldiers were sent to fight the Germans by the British, right? In distant lands. So we were like they had to go to different places to fight the Germans for the British army. So this poem is about patriotism. I have already told you most of the poems of Sarojini Naidu, they deal with patriotism. This is the major theme of this poem. Then at places during the end, it also talks about the, you can say the disadvantages of war. Right? So it's the kind of an anti-war poem also, but the major theme of the poem is patriotism. Right? Because during the end, the second last paragraph, the last paragraph has talked about the disadvantages of war. So let's start with the poem. It has a lot of poetic devices and imagery has been used in the poem. Imagery is something which is very common to the poems of Sarojini Naidu. She uses a lot of images, visual images, color images, auditory images have always been used by Sarojini Naidu. So let's start. Is there aught you need that my hand could do? Rich gifts of raiments or rain of gold. So she is talking to the Britishers. Right? This poem, who is talking? Mother India. So, Mother India has been personified here. Okay? So, Mother India is asking, the country India is being personified as a mother. Right? She has taken the place of a mother in this poem. Right? So, it's personification of the country as a mother. And Mother India says, is there aught? Aught means anything. That is there anything that my hands withhold? Withhold means holding back, not giving. Right? Not giving to anyone. So that is withholding. So she asked these Britishers that, is there anything that I have not given you, that I am withholding from you? Rich gifts. I have given you rich gifts of my land. What are the gifts which I have given you? In the form of raiments. Raiments means garments, cloth. Right? So I have provided you with clothes, clothing, or grain or gold. You have taken grain from me. You have even taken away the gold from this country, that is India. So you have taken so many things from me. This is what Mother India is telling the Britishers, right? That I have never withheld anything from you. I have very liberally given you everything. I have given you my grains. I have given you gold. I have given you raiments, that is garments, right? So you have taken everything from me, and I have never denied. Lo, I have flung to the east and west, priceless precious stone from my place. So, and now what have you taken? Lo means is a call for attention, right? So it's just an address that whenever you ask someone to pay attention, right, to what you are saying. So this is lo is a word which is used just to ask the other person to pay attention, right? So lo, I have flung to the east and the west. I have given freely to the east as well as to the west. East here is a reference to Persia, right? That is present day Iran. And west refers to the France and Flanders. Flanders, what is Flanders known today? Flanders is known as Belgium. Right? Present day Belgium is Flanders. So I have liberally with both hands I have given to the east and to the west. Now what have I given? Priceless treasures from my west. So it's not only that I have provided you with clothes, it's not only that I have provided you with gold and grain, means I have given you clothing, I have given you food, and I have also given you the gold of my land. And besides all these gifts, I have given you something more. And what is that something more? That something is the priceless treasure. So what is the priceless treasure drawn from my breast? Means I have given you my sons, which are like priceless to me, which are the most valuable things for me. My sons here means the soldiers who went to foreign lands to fight for the Britishers, to fight on behalf of the Britishers. So that is the sons. Priceless treasures here it's a you can say a metaphor has been used. Poetic device used here is a metaphor because priceless treasure is used for the sons of Mother India. The soldiers of Mother India are known as the priceless treasures in these times. So it is a metaphor drawn from my breast. And yielded the sons of my stricken. The stricken means afflicted, sorrowful, sad. So yielded means surrendered. I have given, I have submitted my sons. Why is the womb of Mother India stricken? Because Mother India is sending, why is the womb of Mother India sorrowful or sad? Because the sons which are born from this land, they are being sent to foreign lands to fight and ultimately die. Right? She doesn't know that whether anyone of them will come back or not. Right? Most probably they will die fighting. So that is why the womb is mentioned as being stricken. Right? Means that the womb will, the Mother India will always feel the pain, the sorrow of losing the sons of her land. And yielded the sons of my stricken. So I have even given you the most priceless treasure, the most precious thing which belonged to me. And what was it? It was the son. Right? My own sons I have given you. Right? I have even given you my own children who were born on my land. And yielded the sons of my stricken womb to the drum beats of duty, the sabres of war. Right? So I have submitted, I have surrendered my own sons to you, to the drum beats of duty. The drum beats of duty means my sons, they have been surrendered to the calls of duty, right? Because they joined the army as soldiers. So they had certain duty to perform. So they were supposed to surrender to the calls of duty, the calls of the Indian soldiers who were bound to serve the British army, right? Who were bound to serve because they were a part of the British army. They joined British army because India was a colony of the British Empire. So they were supposed to serve the British army during the First World War. So they surrendered their lives. They were sent. They submitted their lives for the call of duty. Gathered like pearls in their alien graves. And now where are they? Their bodies are gathered like pearls on the alien graves. Alien graves means in the foreign country, wherever they were sent to fight. Wherever they were sent. So obviously it was not their land. It was a foreign land because they were fighting in some foreign ground against the enemies of the British Empire. Right? So now their graves are there in those foreign lands because India was, you can say, a slave of the British Empire. So the dead bodies of the Indian soldiers was never brought back. Right? All the soldiers who died fighting, who were killed during war, they were not, their bodies were not brought back to India. Right? They were buried there, or rather, not even buried. So gathered like pearls in their alien graves. Alien graves means foreign graves. So their bodies are now gathered like pearls. You know what is a pearl? So their bodies, which figure of speech has been used here? It's a simile, right? Because the dead bodies of soldiers is compared to pearls. These valuable dead bodies of my sons, they are scattered like pearls. So it's a simile. In foreign lands like you could say like Persia and Egypt. Silent they sleep by the Persian waves. Persian, again I told you it's present day Iran, right? So their bodies, they are sleeping silently. Sleeping silently means now they are dead. They are dead and they are lying in the Persian waves, means next to the Persian seas and in the shores. Right? So their bodies are lying there, scattered like shells on the Egyptian sands. So, and then their bodies are also scattered because they were sent to different places. They were sent to Egypt, they were sent to Iran, and they were sent to all these different places. Right? So that is why Mother India is talking about the different places where the bodies of her sons are lying, are scattered. Right? They are scattered and they are lying in the Persian waves, and then they are also scattered in the Egyptian sands. And further, she has talked about the Flanders and the France also, right? So, because earlier she said, no, East and West, I sent my soldiers both to the Eastern countries and to the Western countries to fight for you. So silent they sleep by the Persian waves, scattered like shells on Egyptian sands. So the dead bodies of the soldiers are scattered like the shells are scattered on the Egyptian sands. So in Egypt also the bodies are lying. Again a simile has been used here because the dead bodies of the soldiers are compared to shells. Is it clear? In this line, the dead bodies are compared to shells. Earlier, the dead bodies of the soldiers were compared to pearls, right? So in both the places, it is a simile because like has been used to make a comparison, right? And whenever we use words like, so, and as, so it is, and to make a comparison, then it is a simile. Whenever a comparison is used without using the words like, as, and so then it is a metaphor, right? So here it is a simile. They lie with pale brows and brave broken hands. They are strewn like blossoms mown down by chance. So the poetess says that they are lying there with pale brows. And why are their brows pale? Because they are dead now. So once the person dies, the circulation of the blood stops in the body, so it turns pale. So their brows are pale now because they are dead and brown and brave broken hands. And while fighting, what must have happened? Their limbs, their hands must be broken, and they must have received several injuries. Right? Their legs must have been chopped down, hands must have been chopped down, broken, lying so in pieces. So that is what the poetess wants to say, that they are lying pale, their faces are pale, brow is pale. Why? Because they are dead now and their hands are broken or cut down. They are strewn like blossoms mown down by chance. Again, a simile has been used in this line. Strewn means scattered, right? So they are scattered like flowers. Blossoms means small flowers. So they are scattered like blossoms mown down by chance. Mown down means when you use a mower to cut. Mower is a, you can say, a machine which is used to cut the grass. Right? So their bodies are scattered in large numbers because a large number of soldiers were killed during World War I. Many Indian soldiers died, sacrificed their lives during the First World War. So that is what she says, that they were killed in large numbers. What happens when you use a mower? You can cut a large amount of grass using a mower, right? So that is why the poetess has used mower here just to tell that, just to communicate that large number of soldiers were killed. Right? The bodies of many soldiers Hundreds of soldiers is lying there, mown down by. On the blood-brown meadows of Flanders and France. I've already told you that Flanders means Belgium. So, blood-brown meadows. Meadows means, meadows are the places where these grasses grown to feed the cattle, right? So those are meadows. Normally the regions with tall grass on which these cows and goats and buffaloes they feed. So those are the meadows. And now the poetess says that even the meadows are brown in color. They are blood brown in color. Why? Because the blood of these soldiers was mixed with the soil of that place. So even the color of the land of this color of the soil of these meadows is also blood brown. Means when the red blood is mixed with the soil. So on the blood brown meadows of Flanders and France. So in these places, even the meadows, they are blood brown in color because of the blood of the soldier. Now, in the next line, can ye measure the grief of the tears I weep, or compass the who of the watch I keep? Now, Mother India is asking the Britishers, can you measure the grief? Can you measure the sorrow of the tears I weep? You people actually cannot even estimate the sorrow, the pain, the suffering, the agony which I undergo, because I have given you my sons. I have sacrificed my sons to fight for you. And I know my sons will never come back. So it leads to a tremendous amount of pain, great amount of suffering. So Mother India is asking the Britishers, can you understand the pain which I undergo? Can you ever have an idea of the suffering which I undergo when my sons are fighting on some foreign land? Or compass. Compass means comprehend. Here the meaning is comprehend, means to understand. Or can you understand? Who means sadness of the watch I keep, that I keep on waiting for my son. Can you understand that sadness? Can you understand that sorrow? So again, a poetic device has been used in these lines. And what is the poetic device used in these lines? Can anyone tell me? It's a rhetorical question. The poetic device used in these lines is a rhetorical question. Okay, now what is a rhetorical question? Rhetorical question is a question which is asked not to get an answer. Right? Rhetorical question is a question which is asked just to like give a dramatic effect to something or to stress upon a particular point when you ask a question. Then that is known as a rhetorical question. Like in these two lines, can he measure the grief of the tears I weep, or compass the who of the watch I keep? So in these two lines, the Mother India doesn't accept any answer from the Britishers. It is just trying to stress upon the point. She's just trying to stress upon the point that she undergoes a great amount of pain when her sons have to go to foreign lands and fight and sacrifice their lives. So this is something which is very painful for Mother India. She doesn't expect an answer from the Britishers these questions. Like while talking also, when you say, do you think I am stupid? So these type of questions are not asked to get an answer, right? Normally when a person is talking and he's like kind of irritated, they say, "Na, do you think I'm a fool?" Right? If you say like this, do you think I'm a fool? It's just to stress upon a point that I'm actually not a fool, right? Just to give a dramatic effect, not to get any answer or any reply from the other person. So that this kind of poetic device is known as rhetorical question. So it is a rhetorical question in these two lines. And personification is also there. Because Mother India is, this personification runs through the entire poem. In the entire poem, Mother India is talking like a living mother, right? So this continues throughout the poem. Or the pride that thrills through my heart's despair. So now she is saying that it's not only the sorrow, right? Though there is tremendous amount of pain, there is tremendous amount of sorrow because I have lost my sons. But then along with that sorrow, along with that pain, there is something else which thrills my heart. And what is it? The pride that my soldiers, they fought bravely. They sacrificed their lives while fighting with a lot of courage, with a lot of strength. So that gives a sense of pride to Mother India. So both these feelings, they are together in the heart of Mother India. And what are those two feelings? One is the feeling of sorrow because she has lost her sons, right? And the second is the feeling of pride because they fought bravely. Right? They were very brave soldiers. They fought like brave, courageous soldiers. So that gives us a feeling of pride, or the pride that fills to my heart's despair. So along with the despair, along with the heart's despair, there is a feeling of pride also, and the hope that comforts the anguish of. And along with all these things, along with these two things, there is also hope. Mother India is very hopeful about the future. The hope that comforts the anguish of prayer. Anguish of prayer means the pain and the suffering. There is some amount of hope. And what is the hope? That one day India will gain its freedom. India will also be a free country. These sacrifices which are being made by my sons who have sacrificed their lives for their country, this will help India to achieve freedom. So that is the hope and the hope. So this hope that one day India will be a free country, this hope is the only thing which gives comfort to Mother India, which gives comfort to the grieving heart of Mother India, the heart which is grieving for the loss of her sons. And the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer, and the far sad glorious visions I see. And so now the Mother India is talking about future, that I see distant visions. And what are those? What kind of vision it is? It is sad and glorious. Now, which figure of speech has been used in this line? Because you have done this figure of speech in class 10. So now I want an answer from you people. Please raise your hands. Oxymoron has been used in these lines. Why? Because sad and glorious has been used together. The visions are sad and the visions are glorious also, right? Sad and glorious are two contradictory words which are used in conjunction, means which are used together. In class 10, oxymoron was used in the poem The Cold Within. You have done it. That is why I asked you. You should have remembered it. Okay, so sad and glorious. And why are these visions? These visions about the future which Mother India is seeing, why are they sad as well as glorious? They are sad because to achieve that aim, to achieve that target of freedom, she will have to lose so many of her sons. So many of her soldiers will have to die in that freedom struggle. So that will give sadness to her. That will be the cause of sorrow. And glorious, why? Because they will die, they will sacrifice their lives, they will be martyred for a noble cause. And what is that noble cause? The freedom of the country. Their sacrifice will not go waste. It will help in the achievement of something which is very great, which is very glorious. And what is that glorious thing? The freedom. the independence of the country. So that is why the vision is both sad and glorious. Sad because of the death of so many soldiers, right? Because the achievement of that aim will lead to the death of so many soldiers, and glorious because India will finally attain its freedom. Right? So it will be something glorious. So that is why these two words have been used together, sad and glorious, of the torn red banners of victory. So, and that is why, see, banners are red. So these banners of victory will be red in color and they will be torn. Why torn? Because India will not be able to get that freedom for free because of the death of so many soldiers. So that is why the banners have been referred to as torn. Because victory will be gained at the cost of the blood of soldiers. The soldiers who are the sons of Mother India, who are the sons of the soil. So that is why the poet has made a reference to the torn red banners of victory. So independence will be a thing which will give a lot of happiness, but then there will be a certain amount of sorrow also. There will be a certain amount of sadness also. Why? Because it will be achieved and it can only be made possible at the cost of the death of so many soldiers. So that is why. When the terror and the tumult of hate shall cease, and life be refashioned on annual space, and your love shall offer memorial thanks to the comrades who fought on the dauntless ranks, and you honor the deeds of the dauntless ones, remember the blood of my martyred sons. So now the Mother India says that when the terror, so this is the vision of Mother India, that there will be one day when the terror and the tumult of hate shall cease. When this confusion, tumult means noisy confusion, right? Or disorder, chaos. So when this disorder, when this disorder and chaos which is caused by hatred, two human beings hating for each other, two human beings trying to establish their superiority over one another. That is the cause of all the war in this world. Who is superior? You or me? That is the only reason for all the war. Right? So, that is what Mother India says, that when the terror and the tumult of hate. So, she is expectant, she is hopeful, she has visions, right? Though that is a distant vision, it is something which is far away, but she is very hopeful that one day India will be able to achieve that target when the terror, and but then that day will be the day when this terror and tumult, this disorder, this chaos, this hatred will come to an end. This chaos and this terror which is caused because of hatred, that will cease. Cease means come to an end. And life be refashioned on anvils. What is an anvil? Anvil are those huge blocks, right? Where you just place the heated metal and then it is hit upon with a hammer to give it a proper shape, right? So you must have seen that huge, normally they are made of iron, right? So huge iron blocks are there where the metal is kept. The heated metal is kept and then with the hammer, we hit upon it to give it a proper shape. So that is anvil. So he says, and life be fashioned on anvils. So there will be a time, there will be a day when this pain and suffering will be over. Right? When this pain and suffering will come to an end. This pain and suffering, which is the result of hatred, that will come to an end. And then the life will be refashioned, reshaped on the anvils of peace. Like the anvil does the job of giving a proper shape to the metal. So similarly, what will happen? The lives of the people will be reshaped on peaceful ways, right? When people will decide to lead a peaceful life without war, without fighting with each other. And your love shall offer memorial thanks. And then she is addressing the Britishers and she says that at that time, what will happen? That your love shall offer memorial thanks. Then the entire world, memorial thanks means that the world will give tribute to these brave soldiers of India who sacrificed their lives fighting for some other country. So then you will feel that love, that gratitude for the Indian soldiers, and your love and gratitude will make you offer tribute to these soldiers who fought for you people, who sacrificed their lives in the foreign land, and to the comrades who fought on the dauntless ranks. Dauntless means fearless, brave, and fearless. So comrades means your fellow soldiers. So she's saying because they fought with the Britishers like their comrades, like their fellow soldiers. So Mother India says to the Britishers that my sons, they fought like your comrades, they fought like your fellow soldiers on dauntless ranks, on the dauntless ranks, on the brave ranks, because they were a part of the military, they were a part of the British Army. So because of their ranks, they fought bravely. Because of their duty, they fought bravely. And you honor the deeds of the dauntless one. And that will be the time. That will be the time when you will express your gratitude, when you will honor, when you will respect, when you will give reverence to the deeds of these brave ones. Who are the dauntless ones? The dauntless ones are the soldiers. Remember the blood of my martyrs. And then what will happen? Then you will remember the blood of my martyred sons. Right? My sons who were dead. I think I missed a line. That is the sabers of doom. Sabers means the swords. Now I remember because I saw it. So sabers mean the sword. The swords which have normally a curved, you can say the curved blade. The blade is curved at the end, so that is saber. Sabers of doom is what? It's again a metaphorical expression, you can say. Right? Why? Because these sabers of doom is an expression of how the war leads to doom. What is doom? Destruction. How the war is responsible for all the destruction. Right? So that is the meaning of sabers of doom. The swords which lead to destruction. Obviously, any weapon is very destructive. You can't expect a weapon to do or to contribute towards the construction of something, right? They are only used for destruction and for killing. So that is why the poet has used this metaphorical expression, sabers of doom, the swords which lead to the destruction, which lead to death, lead to a large scale killing of people. So poetess says that you should remember at that time, you should remember to pay tribute, pay homage to my martyred sons. Martyred means the soldiers, my sons who have sacrificed their lives fighting for you, right? And who died on these unknown lands, on these foreign lands. So you should not forget their contribution at that time. Please do remember their contribution to your victory. So with this, we come to the end of the poem. Before I end, just can you tell me the rhyme scheme of the poem? Anyone? What is the rhyme scheme of the poem? It's AABBCC.
Ma'am, it's AABBCC.
Yes. So anything understood everything. So thank you.